Currently, we are short on funds. Kevin's first year as the operator of his own mining company has been nothing short of it. Now he's in the thick of things and he has no idea how to fix the water that's flooding the cut, turning it into a muddy wasteland. His wash plant is processing paid dirt at an alarming rate and his stockpile is running low. He needs to open up new ground badly, but he's stuck. Brennan approaches Kevin and demands a solution, but there are no more pumps, no outside support, and no funding to acquire new equipment. Ralt, who is trying to work in the deteriorating circumstances, has been seeking another pump for over a week. Once again, Kevin finds himself cornered. I'm really happy to finally have some gold coming out of the ground. Kevin had anticipated challenges when stepping out on his own, but the sheer weight of responsibility is exhausting. He admits that sleep has been scarce and the pressure of running his mine 24/7 is pushing him to his limits. Nevertheless, he remains determined, knowing that success depends on keeping the operation moving. Despite the early results, Kevin realizes there is still a long road ahead and his objective is lofty, but he acknowledges the progress they have achieved. 1,000 ounces of gold and the value of daily after pouring roughly $2 million of his own funds into the mining. The operation can afford to stall, so Kevin radios Brennan for help. Hey Brennan, have you got a copy? His team is racing to strip the overburden and reach fresh paid dirt in the extended section of the Lynx cut, but the site is a mess due to standing water, making equipment maneuvering nearly impossible. Kevin expresses his dissatisfaction via his voice, prompting Brennan to reply promptly. Kevin proceeds to describe the scenario. He needs to fix the water problem immediately, and his machine is stuck in the cut. The obvious solution is to get another pump, but there isn't one available. Earlier in the season, Kevin borrowed a pump from Tony Beets to deal with another flooding issue, but now that pump is dedicated to the wash plant and he can't ask his parents for any more favors. Brendan tries to free Kevin's equipment, but the main problem is still not solved. Water is seeping into the cut from the wash plant's settling pond, turning it into a swamp. They need a pump to continue working, but shutting down the wash plant would be expensive, which Kevin cannot afford. Brendan loses his patience and reminds Kevin that he has been requesting another pump for a week, and the delay has only made things worse. Kevin tries to explain that they need to finish the current cleanup before they can afford to buy new equipment, but Brennan isn't satisfied with that. The longer they wait, the worse the conditions become, and they're running out of time, so tensions are rising. As a solution, Brennan suggests they ask Tony Beets for another pump, but Kevin quickly dismisses the idea, saying that he already borrowed equipment from his parents and isn't willing to go back for more help. Instead, he insists that they find a way to work with what they have. What do you want me to do? Brennan asks with a very irritated shake of his head. I need a pump. Kevin is hesitant to admit it, but they are currently short on funds and cannot afford to purchase another pump. This news does little to alleviate Brennan's frustration, as they are left with no other options and the entire season could be at risk. Kevin is left to deal with the consequences of Brennan's decisions as the pressure increases. Without a pump, their chances of success are dwindling, and failure is not an option for Kevin. As Brennan's frustration reached a boiling point, he decided to just disappear instead of continuing to argue. Kevin had no idea what had happened. The crew was shocked by Brennan's sudden departure. One minute he was on site, pushing for a solution, and the next he was driving off without an explanation, ignoring radio calls, and shooing away producers who tried to find him. I just wish he had taught me more before he left, Kevin admitted. The crew was at a standstill, the water issue remained unanswered, time was running out, and the whole season was in peril. Kevin, left to figure out what to do, was observed babbling as he tried to find out what to do without Brennan, the most experienced earthworks operator on site. Little did Kevin know, Brennan was not leaving the enterprise. Rather, he was taking things into his own hands, determined not to let the mining season pass by because of anything. For $1,000, a ridiculous amount for someone who wasn't even the mine boss, Brendan bought a pump from a buddy who had his own mining equipment. The pump came with 800 feet of lay-flat hose, which was more than enough to drain the cut correctly and get the team back to work. I have to handle things on my own, Brandon explained. This wasn't only about fixing a problem. For Brennan, it was about ensuring the operation's future. If the water problem remained, everyone's paychecks were at stake. Kevin and Faith needed assistance, and this was the quickest way to get us rolling again. After an absence of many hours, Brennan eventually made it back to camp, knowing that Kevin had already invested approximately $2 million of his own funds into starting the mine. He was determined not to see his investment and livelihood evaporate. Kevin, who was still confused about what had transpired, was relieved and frustrated to see Brennan. I wasn't sure where you went, Kevin explained, but Brennan wasted no time getting down to business. He set up the new pump with the express goal of draining the cut as fast as possible. He said with conviction that the group was filled with optimism because, after days of tiredness and worry, they finally had a solution, and that this was due to the water. After checking the connections and seeing that the pump wouldn't turn on, Brennan said, "Are we getting any water at all?" Kevin answered with a scowl, and Kevin instantly identified the issue. There was no way around it. The pump had to be manually primed with water before it could produce suction. Kevin explained that there was no other option, so they filled the pump up by hand and gave it another shot. Kevin signaled for Brennan to watch as he started the engine. After a few moments of nothing happening, water suddenly surged through the hoses, bringing Brennan's spirits soaring. The crew could finally start draining the cut as planned, and soon they would be able to strip down to pay dirt and rebuild the pay pile. With this pump, we can at least get the cut down and keep running. The stress of the past few days started to lift as Kevin watched the murky water slowly recede. With the season no longer in immediate danger, he and Brennan could focus on what mattered most, getting gold out of the ground. But this moment proved something even more important, that they could work together as a team despite their differences. The duo of Brennan and Kevin was formidable. Wow, Brennan was the specialist in earthworks, knowing just how to move dirt effectively, and Kevin was a brilliant mechanic, constantly keeping the operation's equipment running. Together, they kept the quarry continuing. I was concerned when Kevin confessed to taking off, but I was grateful that he returned to explain what had occurred and that he had even spent his own money to keep us going. It was very kind of him. Brennan, this experience wasn't just about. He had aspirations of his own, like maybe finding his own land to mine. He was focused on the work at hand, but he did mention that he was steadily amassing the equipment he would need if he ever had the opportunity. It would be good to have his own gold pile someday.